Hello, everyone. In this week's episode, we are going to be talking about our top films of 2021. And that's it. That's all we're doing today. So
10 each.
10 each. So it'll be long.
Buckle up.
Join us.
Welcome to the Casual Cinecast, powered by Cinelinx. My name is Chris, and with me as always is Mike. I have a question for you, Mike. We've been doing this podcast for a few years now. We've done, I think, like 4 top 10 lists, or maybe this is our 4th one. As we look back, what movie did you whiff it on? Did you miss? You know, what was the biggest mistake on your top 10 list that you've made in the last 3 years? Not that you make mistakes.
Yeah, I've never made a mistake. I just want to clarify that right now. But if I had made a mistake, I think it would be not including Waves in 2019 in my top 10.
That sounds like a mistake.
Yeah, it does. I'm looking at it now, and it was number 12, right behind Knives Out at number 11. And I'm looking at the top 10, and it's all real strong. But I think maybe I could have gotten rid of 1917 in lieu of Waves. Although I like 1917. It's hard, though. That was a good year.
Yeah. And that was that had just come out, right at the end of the year. So it's probably a little fresher in your brain. 1917, that is.
Yeah. And it is an impressive movie, and I like it. So.
Yeah.
Justin, same question to you. Which one did you whiff it on?
Well, I've looked back, and I think I have 2 candidates, and both were from 2018. So that was apparently a real bad year for me. And I don't think I included either film in my top 10, but looking back, I don't know how that's possible. But I didn't include either Blind Spotting or You Were Never Really Here in my top 10. And those are strong candidates for top 5, even looking back, but somehow didn't make it in. It's wild to me.
Yeah. Blind Spotting was my number 10 that year.
Nice. I remember you mentioning it on the episode, and I'm thinking oh, that didn't make mine. But as we talk about it, that was really good, and that's why it's stuck in my head.
Yeah.
What about you, Chris?
Yeah. Mine. The thing that motivated this question was I was looking back, at my Letterboxd top 10 lists or whatever, and the one this really bugs me too. Portrait of a Lady on Fire wasn't even on my list, and maybe I changed it for the episode because I didn't listen to the episode again. I hope I did, but it wasn't even on my list. And honestly, I like that movie maybe as much as my number 1 movie, if not more, Parasite. But Portrait of a Lady on Fire has really stuck with me, and I don't know what I was thinking. Not putting it
it's
on
my
the
number
list.
9 that year.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah. Sometimes you just don't really know what is gonna stick with you year after year. It's funny that way, because there are definitely things as I went through for this question, some of my top 5s, I'm oh yeah, that film was in my top 5. I forgot about that movie.
That's the way I feel about Waves, right? It's I watched it in theaters, and it was just so affecting. And I was you know what? It's not top 10 material, but I don't know if there's been a week that's gone by since I've seen it that I haven't thought about that movie at some point.
Yeah.
Right. Wow.
I think my thing is by this time, everybody's released their top 10 lists, and, I've been inundated by all these different top 10 lists. We bring up the rear of all the lists because, it takes us a while to catch up on the movies. But, I kind of kick against the grain, I think is what's happening. I'm wow, that's been on every single top 10 list. Let me get something else on there that's, that's new and fresh, I don't know.
Well,
and that
obviously
explains
not
my
working out for you.
list this year. So, anyways.
So you're going to have a bunch of movies we've never heard of coming up, is what you're saying.
Exactly, yeah. A lot of short films on my
deep
list.
cuts at us right now.
Well, great.
All right. If this is your first time listening, normally we like to start off every episode in a section called News on the March, where we talk about film and TV news and the movies and TV that we have been watching. But we're not going to do that this year, or this episode.
Yeah, just this episode.
Because, just this episode. We never do it in this episode, but this year we're not doing it either. That's because we have 30 movies we're going to talk about. Well, maybe 30. We may have some duplicates, but either way, it's going to take up the whole time. So, yeah, without further ado, Justin, why don't you tell everyone where they can hear the show more often before we get into it?
Yeah, so you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Casual Cinecast. You can also email us at casualcinemedia@gmail.com. Also, of course, on this podcast, we do Casually Criterion episodes, and on these episodes, listeners choose a film from the Criterion Collection by voting in a poll that we put out on our Twitter account. So you can go check out our last Criterion episode, which was on Mikey and Nikki. There's also a ton of Criterion Collection films we reviewed in our back catalog, and also with our last Criterion episode on Mikey and Nikki, we put out a poll. And Mike, tell people what won the poll and consequently what will be our next Criterion film to review.
Yeah, so our most recent poll had the theme of Black History Month because it will be hitting at the very beginning of February. And we each chose a film. And the number one film with 42.9% was One Night in Miami, which I chose, and is directed by Regina King, which, sadly enough, she's gone through a terrible tragedy recently. Have you guys heard of this?
Yeah.
No.
I have, and it's sad.
Yeah, her son committed suicide, which is horrible.
Yeah.
Her only son. So anyway, it's sad that we have to review One Night in Miami so recently, is when we talk about Regina King. That's what's going to be on my mind.
Right.
Which is a bummer. But anyways, I'm sure the movie will be great.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Coming, in second. Well, actually, the next two are tied. So
yeah.
All right. So both with 28.6% was Pariah, chosen by Justin, and Deep Cover, chosen by Chris. So our next episode will be One Night in Miami.
How fun! Although I would have liked to watch Pariah, and also like the pride of winning, but that's okay.
Yeah, maybe next time, sir.
Yeah, I'll keep my fingers crossed. So, yeah. News on the march? No, we're not doing that.
Yeah. Did you not hear what I just said?
It's habit. I'm sorry. We're not doing that.
I know. This whole year. Okay. Anyway.
Top 10 films.
Top 10. Here we come.
Let's go. All right, Mike, you're going to kick us off here, starting with your number 10. We'll, just for the listener's record, Mike will do his 10th, Chris will do his 10th, I'll do my 10th, and then we'll go 9, 8, 7, etc. in that same pattern. So, Mike, get us started with your number 10 film of 2021.
All right, let's get this thing kicked off. My number 10 is a film that I watched pretty recently in preparing for this episode. It is a film that I believe we all watched, so I'm not sure what you guys will have it on your list or not, but I'm talking about Drive My Car. And this is a film that is very quiet, very long, and very deliberate. And it's also very, very thoughtful and sweet and inspiring and has everything I love about these kinds of movies in it. And it really makes you think, and the end of it floored me. So that will be my number 10. Have you guys... you have any opinion on this movie?
Yeah, I think we'll probably see this movie again.
Yeah, it might come up another time.
Yeah, I thought it might. All right, cool. So, yeah, just briefly, Drive My Car, number 10. So, Chris, what is yours?
All right. My number 10 is a movie... This is really unfair. It's a movie that you probably can't see anywhere, and it probably won't ever be available to be seen because there's copyright issues. It's a movie called Timekeepers of Eternity. It's this movie. This director, his name is Aristoteles Maragos. I can't pronounce it. I apologize.
Nailed it.
Yeah. Anyways, what this director did is he took the Langoliers. He went to Kinko's or whatever and printed out every single frame of the Langoliers, and then he animated it with the just this black and white copied paper thing and just hand did everything, edited it down. So Langoliers is this mini series. I think it was 3 or 4 hours long that aired on TV, and he took it and edited it down to under 90 minutes. But then the thing that's really great about it is that he took by hand and would crinkle up the paper or tear the paper when certain things were happening in the movie. And it's just this really great animated film, redone version of an original film. I have to shout it out because it's not going to get a lot of love anywhere else, and you probably won't be able to see it. But if you get the opportunity, or if you Google it and it's available, check it out because it's really worth your time and it's really compelling. Surprisingly, like the story is, after it's been cut down and all that. Anyways, it's really amazing. It's a movie I got to see at it played at Fantastic Fest, but I didn't actually see it there. I saw it like at a overnight film thing that I went to. Anyways, it's really great. That's my number 10. You guys haven't seen it, but I recommend that you do if you get a chance.
What's it called again?
Timekeepers of Eternity.
And this is a movie that no one can watch, you say?
I mean, not yet. Hopefully.
So be on the lookout for that, everyone.
Yeah. Hopefully it gets released on like YouTube or something like that. I can't see it being released, where this guy makes any money from it, because it's all copyrighted material. I'm sure like CBS or whoever did the Langoliers doesn't really want him to release it.
Have you seen the Langoliers?
I haven't. And now I don't feel like I have to. But I've got the better version.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like an interesting experiment.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It sounds like an experiment worth watching. But I would also feel weird watching it without having seen the Langoliers.
I thought that. That's why I didn't see it at Fantastic Fest. I thought that as well. When I saw it, it was like a mystery screening, so like I didn't have any choice. Like I bought the ticket and then they just showed that movie, and I was surprised at how coherent the movie was, like being cut down as much as it was. I think they really like eliminated a bunch of the side characters, and just focused on like one or two characters, and it's really great, really inventive. Really well done. It's kind of like a claymation, like the stop motion animation, except for with paper and tearing paper. And
sounds like the early seasons of South Park.
Sure. That's actually a good comparison.
Interesting.
But,
all right, cool. So anything else about that movie you want to talk about?
No. Google it, see if it's on YouTube. But for now, Justin, what's your number 10?
All right, so my number 10 is a film that I watched very recently, within the last 24 hours.
Oh, wow.
As I was, trying to squeeze in one more film before doing this episode. And this is a film from Maggie Gyllenhaal. I think it's her directorial debut, but I'm not 1,000% confident on that. At least maybe like feature film. Certainly probably like most notable feature film. But this stars Olivia Colman and Jessie Buckley and Dakota Johnson. And this is a film that it's kind of a psychological drama. It's not quite like a thriller, but it's more of like an unnerving movie that keeps you in this sense of like of unease. A bit like a Michael Haneke movie is kind of the tone and vibe that I got from it.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but so this is about a woman. This is played by Olivia Colman. She goes to take a vacation in like a small town in Greece, and then there's this pretty obnoxious family that shows up. I'm not really sure what their heritage is. I don't really recall. But Dakota Johnson is one of them, and they're a bit obnoxious. They start to like annoy her, and then things start happening with this family interactions that kind of like parallel with some of her past. And Jessie Buckley, we see her in flashbacks playing the young version of Olivia Colman. But this film is called The Lost Daughter. Have you guys seen this?
I have not seen it, but it was on my list of things to try to watch before we recorded this very episode. So I'm jealous that you got to see it, and even more jealous now that it ended up being in your top 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as Mike.
Cool. Well, this movie kind of got on my radar from when I was in New York because Dakota Johnson was on when we went to the taping of the Jimmy Fallon show. She was on to talk about this movie. So I think it kind of, just because of that experience, like worked its way up my list a little bit more,
Yeah, no, I get it. Makes sense.
But yeah, I think this film is really well shot. It's really simply shot. Like, it's not overly flashy in any way. It's just, like things are in frame that should be there, and sometimes they're in the background, like creating suspense, but there's no like flashy camera movements or like big long one shots or like elaborate like colorful lighting. Like, I think in some ways there's some similar themes to like trauma, like a film like Last Night in Soho had, which is a bit flashier in the way that it's dealing with those themes and portraying them. And this is really like straight-laced, straightforward, which again, that's, to me, that's kind of like the Michael Haneke style, at least his films that I've seen. But I think the reason that it has to make my list is just how like much this movie kept me uneasy while watching it, and like nervous and feeling the tension, to go back to a film from a few years ago, Tully, the beginning of that movie, and like other times where they did such a good job of making you feel Charlize Theron's exhaustion as a mother. In a similar way, this movie makes you feel her like exhaustion, her unease, her anxiety. And just the way that they do that is really impressive. And like, there's maybe another movie or two on my list that do the same thing and do it maybe not more effectively, but like in a more in your face like way. But this was really like effective, and all the performances are great too.
Awesome. Well, now you've convinced me that I need to see it like soon, because I don't know, usually after these top 10 lists, after I get done cramming a whole lot of movies near the end of the year, I'm exhausted and don't watch any artsy movies for a little bit.
Yeah.
But I'll have to try to remember to like move this up, because I was actually really curious about it. I love Olivia Colman.
Yeah.
I like the idea of Jessie Buckley playing a young Olivia Colman. That sounds really interesting.
Mm-hmm. She's really great.
I would like to see what Maggie Gyllenhaal could do, because I've always liked her.
Yeah, Maggie Gyllenhaal is really interesting. She's had a real interesting career. I think Jake Gyllenhaal kind of became the star and does like the Marvel stuff, but I think Jake Gyllenhaal would rather have Maggie Gyllenhaal's career, where she kind of sits on the sidelines but does these really interesting things. So yeah, I do think this is her directorial debut. I do think she directed some of the Deuce, that show that was on HBO a while back with James Franco. So
yeah. I think as a director, this one is not in your face. So like her directorial fingerprints, if you will, I guess are there just in the way that the movie makes you feel and like accomplishes putting you in the mindset of like Olivia Colman via other characters' performance and interactions and the sort of like simple camera angles.
Awesome.
So yeah. Okay. Moving on. Back to Mike. All right.
Back to me.
Number 9.
So this is the film that I debated, even though it's not number 10. It's the film I debated having on my top 10 list the most, because I feel like it doesn't really need to be. Everyone's seen it. Everyone's heard of it. But I can't think of a better time I've had in the theaters in years, like just a more fun time. And that is Spider-Man: No Way Home.
Nice.
Yeah. This movie pretty much remedies every problem I had with Tobey Maguire. Wait, no, what's this guy's name?
Andrew Garfield.
Tom Holland. Tom Holland's Spider-Man. He's been hit or miss, right? Like, for me, the crux of a great Spider-Man story always stems from the idea that Peter Parker / Spider-Man has to lose something in order to keep being Spider-Man. In order to do the right thing, you have to lose a little bit. You have to sacrifice. You can't have everything you want. I think all the best Spider-Man movies have that theme.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been zero in all of Tom Holland's MCU Spider-Man presence. And I've enjoyed those movies well enough. They're fine. But this Spider-Man movie, I think, might be the best Spider-Man movie, with the exception of maybe Into the Spider-Verse. And maybe Spider-Man 2, like the Tobey Maguire one from 2004.
Yeah.
But this one is the closest I've seen a superhero movie come to remedy that. It's probably the best. It's not even standalone, because you have to see all the Spider-Mans before it. But like, I don't think since The Dark Knight have I left a superhero movie as pumped.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I'm not going to say it's as good as The Dark Knight.
Right.
But yeah, I just honestly think Spider-Man No Way Home is just a really fun time at the movies. It's just a fun movie experience. So Yeah, I don't know. Don't go back to theaters now if you don't want to, because there's a new variant going all over the place. But for a while there, things were looking good.
And we got Spider-Man.
And I was grateful for the audience that I was with, because they were into it. They were responsive. They laughed at things that made me laugh that I wouldn't have laughed at by myself.
Yeah.
I appreciated it. There was an energy I haven't felt since like Endgame, which wasn't that long ago, but also not many movies come around where the audience can just get that into it, and it's that infectious. So yeah, Spider-Man No Way Home, number 9.
Cool.
What do you guys, first of all, let me ask you guys, are you guys into this movie? Have you seen it? What are your thoughts on this movie?
I will go ahead and just say I did not see this one because I did not go to the movie theater at the time. I think it was just a little uncomfortable with the way COVID was at the time, and so I opted not to go.
Yeah, I saw it. I really enjoyed this movie. It's not on my list, but it certainly could be, and it's probably was the one I had the most fun with. Yeah, I really like this movie a lot. I'm glad you put it on your list.
Yeah, I figured most of mine aren't going to be of this caliber, so I wanted to throw in like a really, fun movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so Chris, what do you got for your number 9?
All right. My number 9 movie is Teton by Julia Decournau. We talked about this movie not too long ago. Speaking like this, I saw this at Fantastic Fest, and I think, while it's a very different movie from Spider-Man, the audience was really into this, like the Fantastic Fest crowd, like it, in the way that like it's crazy. And crazy things are happening on screen, and the audience reacting to those crazy things was part of the fun. And then on top of that, it's a really great movie. There's whether it comes to gender identity and fluidity and all that stuff, I don't know that I've cracked the movie that it is, but that's part of the greatness of it. I really just had a really fun time, which is a really weird thing to say about Teton, but it was just an exciting movie to see. And I really had a great conversation with you guys about it, and I think there's only one or two other movies that we had better conversations about. So what do you guys think?
I think we might talk about it later.
Yeah, I think we definitely will later.
Awesome. That makes me really happy.
It's a good choice.
Indeed.
All right, Justin, what's yours?
Okay, so I think it's funny, Mike, that you chose Spider-Man as your number 9. Like, this is the movie I had the most fun with, because my number 9 choice is kind of the same. It's my fun movie, and that being said, it's not quite that fun, because as fun and funny as this movie is, it's equally as depressing. Like the way that I kind of think about this movie is, sometimes they say like, well, it's funny because it's true, and in many cases in this movie, even though it's a comedy, it's not funny because it's true. And if you haven't figured it out by now, I'm talking about Adam McKay's Don't Look Up.
Oh, this is interesting to me.
Yeah, I had a really great time with this movie. I thought it was really funny. I just enjoy this sort of satirical brand of, I guess, like political current event humor that Adam McKay has been on. I really liked Vice from the previous years. I don't think it made my top 10, that one. But this one just, it made me laugh. I felt like it was really accomplishing what it wants to do in terms of also making me depressed about the state of the world.
Yeah.
But if anyone listening has not seen this, it's on Netflix. It's basically 2 astronomers discover a comet or an asteroid. I don't really know the difference, to be honest, but one of them, it's gonna hit Earth and basically create an apocalyptic, like, extinction level event, and they try to tell the world, the president, the media, and through either trying to spin it as something fun or trying to politically manipulate it, people don't really take it very seriously, and to their frustration, which probably sounds familiar even if you haven't seen the movie. And that's where I think the movie's genius kind of lies. But have you guys seen this movie? What did you think?
I have seen it, and like you, I enjoyed it. I don't know that I enjoyed it as much as you, and I don't know that I love Adam McKay's style as much as you. But equally, I don't see the controversy around it either, because I feel like Adam McKay is one of those filmmakers that's very divisive. And people really love or really hate his movies. And ever since he stopped doing comedies like Step Brothers, I've enjoyed him much more, to be honest with you.
Yeah, same.
That said, this movie, I think I would have liked it more had it not frustrated me so incredibly much.
Frustrated you from like the filmmaking and the things within, or frustrated with its
a little of both.
To home?
I think one of Adam McKay's tendencies is to let actors go on a little too long.
Okay.
Without trimming them down. It was my main problem with Step Brothers and Anchorman. And I think it continues into his more serious political satire movies as well. That said, most of the frustration, other than just like, improv scenes going on too long or whatever, most of the frustration came from the fact that it doesn't seem as satire as it maybe once would have. I don't know.
Yeah,
it made me depressed about how stupid we are.
Yeah, like even 3 years ago, this movie would have hit entirely differently. Like I think in a post-COVID world, even though I think this film could...
I think in a post-2016 world, to be honest with you.
Yeah, okay, maybe that's fair. But I think this film is not necessarily as targeted towards COVID. It's also like about climate change and other things like that equally. But definitely these last like 2 years have made anything I would have thought about it. I think it's made it significantly worse. Like that this is a little too real,
Yeah, well, just this idea that like the people in charge are really just kind of selfish, egotistical, vain narcissists, and they don't super know what's going on or care.
No.
Or plan things out. And that rings very true after watching this movie.
Mm-hmm. Chris, I didn't hear if you had seen this or not.
I haven't seen it. We talked about this a little while back. Adam McKay is not my favorite. Vice wasn't my favorite. So this was on my low priority that I just didn't get to, unfortunately. Now I really feel like I need to watch it just so that we can have this conversation, and maybe we'll talk about it on a future episode or something, depending on what my take is. But I do want to watch it, even though I don't think I'm going to like it as much as you guys, which I really got to get rid of that, just go in blind, but it's hard to do. So
Yeah. Well, there's not much to talk about in terms of like great cinematography. Like, I mean, it's fine looking movie, right? But that's not what it's there for. It's there for like the script and the metaphor and the political satire. A lot of great performances. I just want to say the MVP for me was Mark Rylance as Peter Isherwell, who is basically the like Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg character.
Elon Musk type.
Yeah, Elon Musk. All kind of like rolled into one character. He really just cracked me up and just was really perfect. So I just want to single him out, and I don't have anything else on this movie. Unless
it reminded me of what he was. It was a very similar performance to what he did in Ready Player One.
It is, yeah. I'm not sure if he has anything else in the tank because I haven't seen him in anything else. But he's in like every Spielberg movie for the past like 10 years. Oh, really? Well,
12 years, 15 years.
Yeah. If that was all he could do, which I'm guessing it's not, but if it was, like he was perfectly utilized in this role, in my opinion.
Yeah. There's like really white fake teeth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways, even though it's not on my top 10 list and I'm a little more like, I don't know how I feel about it than Justin, I recommend watching it, Chris. I think it's not subtle, which is I think what a lot of people don't like about it, but also we don't live in subtle times anymore.
Yeah. The not subtle part of it is oftentimes like the most part, like true part that rings the most true.
What rings the most true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Fair enough.
But okay, moving on back to Mike.
Okay, so my number 8 film is a film that is from a director that I really admire. I think he's one of the best working directors today. He can make seemingly anything work, even whenever it doesn't seem like it's going to. And I am talking about Dune, directed by Denis Villeneuve.
Nice.
Yeah, this is a film that I've never seen any version or read any version of Dune. This was exciting to me because even though I like David Lynch, I've never sat through the David Lynch version of Dune.
Oh man, you should. It's a wild ride.
I've actually watched pieces of it since then, and man, is it look like something else. But yeah, this movie, I was kind of skeptical a little bit. I've never been huge on Timothée Chalamet as a leading man. I didn't know that he had it in him, you know? But he did good. He did good. Also, equally, I don't know that he's really the leading man. This movie has he's the main character, but it's got a lot of characters.
Yeah.
And a lot of them do a lot of the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at you, Rebecca Ferguson.
That's literally what I was about to say.
But anyway, I really enjoyed this. I can't wait for part 2. I think the mood, the music, the blending of practical with digital special effects is just, I don't know where the set begins and the CGI painting begins, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's just a beautifully made movie. What did you guys think of Dune? Or is this what you guys have seen it, I'm sure?
Yeah, I think we're going to talk about this later a little bit more.
Yes.
Okay. But yeah,
okay, cool.
I've seen it too, so we'll talk about it when it comes up later.
Sweet. So anyway, Dune number 8. Chris, what is your number 8?
My number 8 is another directorial debut, like Maggie Gyllenhaal, and it's another actress, Rebecca Hall. She directed this movie based on a book called Passing. When I first watched this movie, I kind of walked away, like I liked it, but it's grown on me a lot since, like the intricacies of it is really fascinating, I think. And on top of that, I think it's shot really interestingly because it's shot in like high contrast black and white. And the premise of the movie is that, in the 1920s New York City, a black woman finds her life is upended when she finds a friend is passing for white. And then the cinematography of it is like high contrast black and white. So it's shot in this way that all this contrast is happening in the image. And it's also 6x3, the square image. Maybe you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but it's that
4x3,
like the 4x3 or like Lighthouse.
Yeah, that's 4x3.
4x3. Okay. Anyways, I found that Tessa Thompson and Ruth Negga are both really great in this movie. It also has Andre Holland and Alexander Skarsgård as a jerk. But the performances are really great, especially those two main leads, Tessa Thompson and Ruth Negga, and then just the intricacies of these performances and who's passing for what and why and all that you think about after the movie is really fascinating. And I think it's really done a great debut feature from Rebecca Hall. Have either of you guys seen this?
No, I am interested because I want to see what Rebecca Hall does direction-wise. I didn't see her other film, but this has been on my radar, but I never watched it.
Yeah, I haven't seen this either. I wanted to see it, but never got around to it. But it's been climbing up my list of things I need to make sure and see recently because I got a book for Christmas called Colorization 100 Years of Black Films in a White World, I think is the name. But I
think so.
Yeah, that's it. By Will Haygood. And I actually wasn't even familiar with what the concept of passing was, but it's covered very greatly in that book, like especially the early chapters that I've been through so far, which, really have so far only gone up to like the 1950s at most.
It's like that Denzel Washington movie we watched recently.
The like noir one?
Devil in a Blue Dress.
Devil in a Blue Dress. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So as I've been reading that, and there have been stories of people passing and how that was viewed at the time by black people who found out that other black people were passing as white, and how they viewed them, has made me fascinated in this movie. So go on, tell me more about it.
Well, I think it's worth your time. I don't want to say too much more.
Is Rebecca Hall the best person to tell that story?
She is actually, and because her dad, she's half black.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
Well, then she is. She definitely is.
She's perfect for this, I think. That was brought up in another discussion I had, outside of the podcast. And that was brought to my attention, which is interesting. And I think she's the perfect
That's kind of
person
what turned me off of it, honestly, because it felt like, I was like, I don't know, it felt wrong. It felt like not the right person to tell the story, but now I feel like an asshole for
Oh, you
thinking
didn't
that.
know. What do you?
Yeah, you're not the only person that has brought that up. Like I said, so yeah, it's a good thing to question. But then once you figure it out, then it's fine. But I do really think it's worthwhile, and it's kind of just stuck with me in the way that like movies do. Maybe it'll climb up on my list. In 4 years, I'll be like, this one should have been number one. But for now, I think you guys should check it out. I think you'd really like it.
How's Tessa Thompson?
They're both great. Tessa Thompson and Ruth Negga are really great. Tessa Thompson carries the movie, I think. She's the main character, the protagonist. And some really interesting things. I think that this is a possible Criterion movie because, it's Netflix. Netflix doesn't care about releasing their films on DVD. So I bet you in the next year we'll see this on Criterion and we can talk about it on one of our episodes.
I hope so.
Sweet. Where can I watch it now?
It's on Netflix.
Okay, rad.
Nice.
Awesome. So that is Passing, directed by Rebecca Hall.
Yep. Justin, what about you?
All right, so number 8 on my list is a film that I was excited for a long time. I feel like the trailer came out and then it was a really long time before we saw the movie. It might have been delayed, to be honest. I can't really remember. But big fan of the director. He makes films that I just love to look at regardless of what else is happening. And I also have a feeling this might be a little bit later on some other people's lists, and we'll discuss it later. So I'll just rip the Band-Aid off, and that is The Green Knight by David Lowery.
We might talk about that later.
Might talk about it later? Okay. Just I won't say much then. Just that the movie looks amazing. The plot is loose and not very exciting, but I think that's what David Lowery does best, is focus on aesthetic, tone, and the themes. And those really spoke to me in a genre of film that I typically am not that big of a fan of, which, I won't harp on that, but go back, listen to our episode on it. But big fan of Green Knight. So I'll leave it there and go back to Mike.
Awesome. So, number 7. My number 7 film is one that was mentioned earlier by one Christopher Reeves. And this is Teton.
Nice.
Which is a film directed by Julia Ducournau. I don't know how you say her name.
Ducournau?
Ducournau? I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah.
But no disrespect, Julia. But yeah, great movie. It's sexy. It's weird. It's gross. It's off-putting. It's everything, right? It's the whole gambit of emotions you're going to feel watching this movie. But ultimately, more than any of the flash and the sexiness and the weird, absurd car sex plot, more than any of that, it's about connection with someone, right? It's about finding where you belong and who can accept you and what must they have gone through.
Yeah.
And I don't know, there's just a whole lot of questions, and it's just this bizarre, eerie kind of horror movie. I don't even know what genre to put Teton in, to be honest with you.
Right. Yeah. It's a movie. It's a movie.
Yeah, it is a movie, and it's one of the movies I saw this year,
One of the best ones you saw this year.
Yeah, it's my 7th favorite, but also equally, it might be the one I want to rewatch the least.
Yeah.
So take that how you will, but yeah, Teton. I'm not sure if it's going to pop up again later on, but anyone who wants to say anything else about it, please go ahead.
Yeah, it'll pop up later.
Okay.
Say that much. So.
All right.
So we can stop there, I guess.
Good deal. So, Chris, what is your number 7?
My number 7 is a film by a very old man, Paul Verhoeven, directing a movie about sexy nuns. Benedetta is the movie. I really like this movie. Much like Passing, it grows on you. And it's really just about women in the 100 years, 200 years ago, and what they had to do in order to get any kind of power, or if they expressed themselves sexually that wasn't accepted, what the consequences of that would be. And I found this movie fascinating. It's really kind of a wild ride. When I saw this at Fantastic Fest, and it's a Paul Verhoeven movie about sexy nuns, and I kind of wrote it off. It's another Basic Instinct, which Basic Instinct's good for its thing, but it
disagree.
for its thing. Anyways, but that's kind of what I was expecting. Well, this is going to be more focused on the sex as opposed to a story, type of thing. Anyways, this is not that. There is sex in it, and there is like a holy device used for like unholy things, or depending on your definition of that. So it is a crazy movie, but it's really, really great. Really worth watching and checking out. And really great performances by I can't pronounce. Why are all my people have weird names? Virginia Efiri, she plays the main character. Charlotte Rampling is in this, who's also in Green Knight. But it's a really great film. Have either of you guys seen this yet?
And Dune.
Huh? Oh, and Dune, yeah. She had a good year.
No, I haven't. It's been something that's been on my radar for a long time. I'm surprised it's here in this top 10 list because I wanted to see it, but my thoughts before seeing it were always going to be like, oh, it's a Paul Verhoeven movie, so it's going to be corny, overly sexy, and a little on the nose.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Well, I'd be interested in having a further conversation once you see it, because just to see what you think.
Yeah, I mean, those things don't sound bad to me. I don't want you to think those things are insults.
Right.
But I don't know. Like everything I've heard about it has always been like the sexy nun movie, almost to the point to where like it almost seems more comical than anything.
Sure. And that was my initial reaction. And because, like, I did see it at Fantastic Fest, so it was and it was a mystery screening. So once again, this is another movie that I may not have seen if I knew what I was walking into. I wouldn't have prioritized it because of exactly what you're saying, Mike. But I was very pleasantly surprised by this movie and how good it is. And it also deals like with faith and religion and like who has the power and how do you get that power from those people. And that's the part that I really found interesting. And it's actually, well, loosely based on a true story as well, like the memoirs of a nun from that time. So really interesting stuff.
Cool. Yeah, no, like I said, this has always been on my radar, but you're selling it to me more than the word of mouth previously has. So it sounds like there's more substance there than like what they were advertising.
Yeah, there is definitely more substance there.
Sweet. Cool.
Yeah.
I like movies that think about religion and then point out the hypocrisy in it.
Yeah.
Well, then you like this movie.
I have not seen this, and I'll never watch it because it's way too hard to like say. I have to think about it every time I look at it. I'm like, because I always want to say Vendetta, like Vendetta, and then I have to go Benedetta. And so if I don't see it, I never have to talk about it or say the name.
That's true.
I'm going to start a Benedetta podcast and invite Justin on.
Casual Benedetta is what our new name's going to be.
Dang it. Okay. Well, then I guess I'll watch it.
Yeah. All right, Justin, what's your next movie?
All right. So number 7 is a film we've already talked about. And I think from the sound of it, it's going to appear somewhere else. But that is Drive My Car from Ryusuke Hamaguchi.
Mm-hmm.
Giving that a go.
You can't say Benedetta, but you said that perfectly.
Yeah, that I'm willing to go for.
You did better than I did whenever I tried to say his name.
But just briefly, yeah, this film is very deliberately paced, as we like to say on the show. And I just thought it was a really touching, interesting story, kind of beautifully shot in a minimal way that I really loved, and a way that lets the actors and their performances shine. And I think there's some really great performances in here and some really touching stuff. And yeah, this will show up later, right?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I'll leave it there and move back to Mike.
All right. So, number 6. This is a film that when I watched it, I was completely taken aback by how much I enjoyed it. It is starring Nicolas Cage, giving the best performance that he's given in many years, at least that I've seen. I'm not going to claim to see every Nicolas Cage performance of the past few years, but
There's so many.
there are a lot. But this is my favorite. And it's directed by Michael Sarnowski. And this is Pig, which is a film about a man who used to be a prominent figure in the fine dining world of Oregon, living in the woods with his truffle pig.
Everybody's
and living
dream.
a simple existence until one day someone comes and takes his pig away in the middle of the night.
Mm-hmm.
And so he sets out on a quest to find said truffle pig and return to his minimal life. And this movie just, I was not expecting it. It took me aback, like I said earlier. It deconstructs a very, very tired genre into a fun way, and all of a sudden you're hearing conversations rather than like revenge, let me break your knees. Instead, it's like, why are you cooking food for people you don't like? Why don't you cook food that you're passionate about? Why don't you do something you love? What is art? What does it mean to us? And why do we place value on it? It just goes in so many more thoughtful places. So it takes a tired genre that I've seen a million times and does something instead that when we reviewed it on the show, we had a great conversation about art.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, Pig, I don't know if this is going to be popping up again later, but what are you guys' thoughts on Pig?
It certainly will be popping up later.
Awesome.
Okay. I've seen it, and I think it's a good movie. It did not make my top 10 list, so, but we'll talk later.
Podcast
Cool.
over.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, Chris, number 6.
My number 6 film, there's a lot of musicals this year. And, I don't feel like in the past there's been this many musicals. There was like In the Heights and Tick, Tick, Boom. Anyways, just a bunch of musicals. And I picked one that was a remake, West Side Story, by Steven Spielberg. I really love this movie. I don't know exactly what I was expecting going into it, but Steven Spielberg can still make me like excited when I watch a film. Have either one of you guys seen this yet?
I have not.
No, I wanted to, but I had never seen the original West Side Story even, so I was like, I'm just too far behind.
Yeah, and that makes sense. But what I would say is there's like this, it's Romeo and Juliet, like spoiler alert. And there's
I did know
this, there's a sequence in the gym, this dance off that the two sides are having. And it is so exciting. It's just like the way he moves the camera in and out of all the people dancing. And then it focuses on the two lovers, or like as they're meeting for the first time and they see each other across the dance floor. And it just captivates me immediately, and it gets my attention. Plus, there's some like really great performances in there. Rachel Ziegler is a newcomer, from my understanding, and I think she's someone to keep your eye on.
Yeah, I keep hearing about her.
Yeah, she's really good in this. We'll see what happens in the future and stuff. Ariana DeBose, I think she's won some awards for her performance in there. Mike Feist may be the MVP, though. Like, he is kind of the
No
leader.
Ansel Elgort?
No. But he's kind of the leader of the Irish gang, I think. Anyways. And he is really good in this. And, you get this, like... I had this picture of, like these gangs dancing, and snapping, and it doesn't seem very threatening. But somehow between Steven Spielberg and the actors, there are things in this movie that does feel threatening and does feel like there are stakes there, as opposed to, two sides of a gang having a snap off. I really love this movie. I thought it was really great. And I think you guys, when it is available, which I don't think it is yet available anywhere, and it bombed, man. It bombed so bad at the movie theaters. I'm like so bummed out about that. But hopefully it will pick up in VOD and stuff like that.
I think this is a remake about 20 years too late.
Yeah.
Certainly. And also, I mean, the other thing is Steven Spielberg has been waiting to make a musical since, or like that Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom, that opening sequence is basically a musical number, and it's so great. And that's kind of what he's transported into this, is, you know, that energy and that like excitement that's happening in it.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, I still want to see this. I already can tell that I think it's going to be the most interesting Spielberg in years.
Yeah.
Because like the last ones that come to mind are like Ready Player One and The Post.
Mm-hmm.
Which are not high tier Spielberg, right? So I definitely want to see this, and it's been on my radar, but like I said, I need to see the first one. And also, like I mentioned earlier, I think this movie wouldn't have bombed 20 years ago.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different like reasons
we live in a different world now. I don't think West Side Story is going to draw anyone to the movie theater.
Well, especially right now. Like, if you look, my thinking is, you know, the people that were actually interested in West Side Story were, you know, people 10 years older than I am, you know, like 10 to 20 years older than I am. And those are the people the most susceptible to the pandemic right now. So that's partially, I mean, my reasoning behind it. You know, maybe that, you know, the people that are going out are going to see Spider-Man, which is the youthful group, you know? So that's my thinking. It also may be that it's just West Side Story. You know, it's not a super big...
I mean, it's not the only great movie to bomb this year.
Sure.
Yeah. I think most of my interest in this comes from the fact that it's Steven Spielberg's like favorite movie, right? Doesn't he often cite that as like his favorite movie? The original?
Certainly one of them, yeah.
And to see him come in and then like tell his version of it, like that interests me. Of like, you know, imagine if like one of us got to remake our favorite movie, right? Like, how would we do that? And what would we put the emphasis? I wouldn't either. I'd be scared as hell. But
I wouldn't touch it.
But like, what, you know, where does the emphasis put? Where's the love put most? You know, how do they do it? Do they do it really faithfully? Where do they deviate? Like, that's what interests me about this movie more than anything else about it. So I'll see it at some point.
Yeah, same. There's never going to be a world where I don't see this as soon as it's available.
Right.
Yeah.
Even more so than any movie we've mentioned so far, because it's Spielberg. Like, I was always going to see this one.
Yeah,
Right.
Exactly. All right. Unless anybody else has anything to say about that, we'll move on to Justin.
Yeah. I don't have anything else. So moving on, we can go to my number 6 film, which is, I think it's an Italian film, Licorice Pizza. Is that Italian? I don't know how to pronounce this.
Lisa Rice Pizza.
Licorice Pizza, I think it is. Okay, bad jokes aside, Licorice Pizza is my number 6 Paul Thomas Anderson film, starring Alana Haim and Philip Seymour Hoffman's son, Cooper Hoffman. This is a bit of a hangout movie. It's just kind of set in the 70s, and we follow through, you know, a bit of like an episodic series of events with these 2 characters who meet, and kind of one of them have crushes on each other, another one has some feelings for the other one, whether it's appropriate or not. But I found this movie to be pretty fun, really fun to look at in a really like saturated, like old school film kind of way. I just love the look of this film, and just the sort of meandering path through all these different episodes and these 2 characters' lives during the time that they meet and get to know each other, etc. I'm a big Paul Thomas Anderson fan. This is not my favorite movie of his, but I do think it's his best since There Will Be Blood. And I know you guys have both seen this because we did a whole episode on it, but what are your thoughts?
Well, I'll go ahead and jump in real quick, because this is also going to be my next film, my number 5.
Your number
so
5.
I'll just kind of, yeah.
Okay.
So it'll literally be the next thing we talk about. So I'll just go ahead and jump off this and say that, one of my favorite movies of the year. Obviously, it's my number 5.
Mm-hmm.
Big Paul Thomas Anderson fan from like way back. He's one of the first directors I got into when getting into movies.
Right.
I also think this is his best movie in a while. But also, I've probably enjoyed his work more recently than maybe you have with like Inherent Vice and The Master and stuff.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed it. I think I enjoyed those more than you did, but I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No, I think you're right.
But yeah, this is top tier P.T. Anderson. I like it better than Phantom Thread even, which I thought was his best movie since There Will Be Blood before that.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, Cooper Hoffman and Alana Haim are just like so fun to watch. I can't wait to see what both of them do in the future. They're just so charming and likable.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's just nothing really bad about this movie. Even like the smaller characters are all just so full of life and have so much charisma and memorable moments to them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like Bradley Cooper, Tom Waits, you know, Sean Penn.
Yeah.
Like, it's just fun. It's just a fun, really happy movie.
A lot of fun characters, but yeah, Chris?
Yeah, you know how we talked about movies that we regretted not putting on our list? This may be one that I regret, you know, in a couple of years. As especially Paul Thomas Anderson movies oftentimes grow on me. I think it's right. Like I have it like at number 11, you know, and it's for where I am right now. That's the perfect spot for it, you know, like, but it'll probably grow on me and become a favorite. And I should have put it higher type of thing. But yeah, I really like this movie. I wish I could have seen it a second time. That may have secured like, and made me feel like I was putting it in the right spot, because oftentimes, especially with Paul Thomas Anderson, you know, like I saw Phantom Thread the second time and I liked it so much better. So same thing here. So I'll have to watch it again. We'll see what happens. But I certainly am not surprised by you guys putting it on your list.
It reminds me of a Fellini movie if Fellini had grown up in Hollywood.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's basically it's like, you know, sort of a bit over the top characters, or characters that are at least very eccentric, and like the things that make them eccentric are like dialed up to 11 quite often, and just the way that like the film is saturated kind of just melds into that, where it's like it's not surreal, but it's kind of almost hyper real at times.
It's like magic realism in a way.
Maybe minus the magic, but
well, I mean, magic realism is not actually like, you don't have to actually have magic in it, but like it's sort of like heightened reality, right?
Right. I guess I've never been too sure on the term of magic realism, but I thought it was something like big. But well, I could be wrong.
I don't know. I mean, I may be wrong, but like when I watched Narcos on Netflix, they like kind of lean into the magic realism aspect of it all.
Okay.
And they even like highlighted at the beginning of the movie, like, this is going to be magic realism, to where like there's going to be a lot of coincidences and over the top things, but we're going to play it straight.
Okay. Well, that sounds like Licorice Pizza. Yeah. so there you go. Maybe you're right.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So that was.
So anyway, yeah, you're 6 and my 5.
Yeah, there's a whole episode on that in our back catalog if you want to hear a longer discussion. But so I think we skip Mike now and go to Chris's number 5, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. In the top 5s. All right. So my number 5 is a movie that's already been mentioned, Dune. I second everything Mike said about this. You know, this is the type of movie, you know, this is like Lawrence of Arabia, but in space. You know, like it's so beautiful. It's great looking. You wonder how they got these shots. You know, like you wonder what's CG and what's not. And on top of that, it's a great story. You know, like you get carried away in this fantasy. And I really enjoyed it. I think when we reviewed this on the show, I was a little bit harsh on it because of the ending, and I have grown softer on that. You know, like I don't mind that ending. You know, like being part of two movies, the ending being that weird. I don't have a problem. Like if we never got a second one, I think I'd be okay. So yeah, I really like this movie. So Justin, what do you think?
Yeah, so I also really like this movie. I'll just say it's not on my list.
Oh, okay.
And the reason being is because to use your Lawrence of Arabia analogy, like this would be like me walking to the lobby during the intermission and being like, this movie is one of the best movies I've ever seen. And maybe that's true, but there's still a whole half of a movie left, and that's kind of how I feel about it, right? Like, you know, this movie hinges so much on what comes next that I just feel so weird about being decisive about how great it is or isn't, right?
Yeah.
But what is
And I
there,
guess-
I really like a lot. And like, without that, it very well could have like been in the like, the bottom half, like 6 to 10 spots somewhere in there. I could see it unseating one of those movies.
Yeah. I think I felt the same way. I've just softened on that ending, and I'm not. I don't know. Maybe it's because we're getting the second one. But I don't necessarily disagree with your analogy of the first half of Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah,
although the first half of Lawrence of Arabia is much better than the second half. So.
Well, exactly my point. And it's not a criticism of it like, oh, it's part one, so it's not as good. Like, it just feels incomplete to me to the point where I can't judge it properly. I don't feel good about it.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
I don't have that problem. I mean, like, you're right, it does end. But I don't think the second one coming out and being like, I don't know, just good and not as good would make part one worse.
Yeah. Maybe not.
Yeah. I mean, unless it's like terrible and like, I don't, but like, I don't imagine it will be.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
So you're right, but also part one is its own movie. So
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, you're right, and also I agree and don't. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, it is weird. And I think when we talked about this, like I would have sided with Justin when we first talked about it, but for whatever reason, I've softened on that ending, and like I don't mind it, and everything else that's in it, I think is really spectacular.
For example, like I think It Part 1 is still a great movie, even though Part 2 is not nearly as good.
Sure.
Yeah, that's true. And I guess I feel like I'm less likely to watch It Chapter 1 because I know where it goes. But like if I try to, get the whole story in there. But I mean, you're totally right. And I think seeing the second one will also help like determine how good this one is on its own, right? I don't know. That might be weird, but everything in it that's great. Like, don't get me wrong. I think it looks great. The performances are really good. It's really interesting. I love the story. I went out and bought the book because I'm like, I'm going to read this thing because this is so good.
Have you?
No. But
it's a big book.
But I intended to because this movie was so good, and that's the point.
Indeed. All right, cool.
All right. Am I up next?
All right. Yeah, Justin.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So number 5, another film I'm positive is going to be on someone else's list, but this is a Western film that we reviewed pretty recently, a film from Jane Campion starring Benedict Cumberbatch and Jesse Plemons, Kirsten Dunst, Cody Smith-McPhee, but this is The Power of the Dog. This is a great looking movie. I love the score. I love the tone, the vibe of it. And it is also probably one of the most surprising movies that kept me wondering what it was I was watching and what this movie is about, almost until the final frames of the movie. And in that way was really, really satisfying. It was a great conversation. I know you guys have seen this. So what do you think?
I think we're going to talk about it later.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. All right. So that was Power of the Dog, my number 5. Mike, back to you.
All right. So my number 5, again, was Licorice Pizza. So my number 4 is a film that I alluded to earlier being a good film that bombed. And this is like a 2.5-hour movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And the more I sit on this movie, the more I like it. It stars Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, Jodie Comer, and Adam Driver. And it is The Last Duel. And yeah, I mean, what else can be said about this movie? It's a shame that most of the conversation around this movie came from Ridley Scott talking about why he thinks it bombed. And then just a whole bunch of people complaining about how Ridley Scott's out of touch and old and stupid and all that stuff. And really all I took from that conversation is that Ridley Scott was right. Is that millennials are stupid and we see stupid movies in theaters and we don't see the right ones, and this movie bombed. And there's no excuse. We should all be punished for it because this movie is so good and more people should have seen it.
Yeah, well, Ben Affleck says he probably won't be in another theatrical released movie, so
Wow.
That's our punishment, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean yeah, Ben Affleck. But for real though, all seriousness aside, not enough young people saw this movie. Not enough old people saw this movie. Considering that everyone who did see it agreed that it was exceptional.
Yeah. Interesting.
It's a shame that that's so hard to get people to do now, just to sit down and just like commit themselves to like a 3-hour adult drama, right? And it's basically, Rashomon in a modern day lens, kind of. Although
Right.
it takes place in 1300s France.
So modern.
But yeah, have either of you guys seen The Last Duel yet?
No, I have not, but I also had another friend of mine who I was talking to about the films that he loved recently, and he mentioned The Last Duel and said that it was really great. And I know you really liked it, so on my list, but haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what you think about it, Justin, because you have the most trouble with like sword and sandal knightly type movies.
Yeah,
and this movie doesn't really focus on that too much. Like there's no one's putting on fake accents, and no one's, it's not like The Other Boleyn Girl or something, right? But
Right.
it's not Gladiator either.
Yeah. That's been the thing that's kept it from jumping to the top of my list and being like, all right, gonna watch this tonight. But that doesn't mean that I'll never watch it, and I'm definitely interested.
Yeah. Well, anyway, last words about it. Just basically, in a world full of reboots and franchises and sequels and IP that's so important,
Mm-hmm.
I think unless, Netflix coughs up $300 million or $200 million or whatever, I think the days of things like The Last Duel are gone.
Right. Yeah. Very possible.
Anyway, Last Duel, see it. It's exceptional. Matt Damon's my favorite Matt Damon performance.
Nice.
Hair performance.
Yeah. he did have hair.
Yeah.
All right. Chris, what is your number 4?
All right, my number 4 is another movie starring Jodie Comer. It's a movie called Free Guy. Speaking of IP, no, I'm just joking.
Are you being for real right now?
Wow. I
That
started
took a
to type
turn.
it. How dare you?
No, my film is Pig. Once again, I second everything Mike said. This is really great. Like, why do you do something, and what is your motivation for doing it? Like, are you enjoying the art, or are you being told why you should enjoy the art? Like, as someone that listens to a lot of podcasts and talks on a podcast, like it kind of, do your own thing, like enjoy it for your own reasons. And that's how we got Timekeepers of Eternity on this list. But yeah, I really liked it. Nicolas Cage's performance is really great in here. It's this, and it surprises you because, like Mike was saying, you're expecting, or at least when I went to see it, I was expecting, the John Wick with a pig, and I thought it would be fun, but I didn't expect to be moved as much as I was, or to be challenged to think as much as I was. The conversation we had about this was really great, and I found, more depth in it. I really appreciate that. So if you want more pig talk, check out our back catalog. But I just really enjoyed this movie. There's a lot of things. It's beautiful, like food porn. If you like food, and you well, no, I shouldn't say that. But if you like food and cooking shows, this is really great. Anyways, I really loved it. I know it's not on Justin's list, but do we have anything else to say before we move on to our next one?
No, other than to reiterate to say, up until the last 3 weeks, this was in my top 3, and then so many movies just kept bumping it down. Yeah. But it feels wrong because whenever it ended the first time, I was so over the moon about it.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like if it had come out later in the year, it probably would have been higher.
Yeah, recency bias. It did come out at a time, I know, The Green Knight and Pig both came out around the same time, it feels like. And I kind of felt like the movies are back,
right.
Good movies are back in the theater,
Yeah, it was just that thrill of challenging movies again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I won't,
any final thoughts, Justin, before you move on to yours?
Well, my only thought is just because oftentimes we are so agreeable on this podcast, I'll take the moment to say that this is probably so far like the biggest example of us being the furthest apart, or like me being the furthest apart from you guys, because this one is pretty far down on like my overall list. It's not in like the bad movies I didn't like it's certainly it's like in the upper half still, but it's pretty far away from my top 10. That this movie just like didn't quite connect with me, and maybe I need to watch it again. I enjoyed our conversation much more than I remember enjoying the movie. So that was definitely worthwhile, and I don't regret watching it and having that conversation. But just to insert some drama in here, I just have to say that,
Well, I just have a question for you then. Mm-hmm. How's it feel to be wrong?
Yeah. How's it feel to have shitty taste in movies, Justin?
I mean, it feels good. I'm making people listen to me list off the top 10 movies I liked, so
true enough.
So the joke's on them, the people listening.
All right. What's your movie, Justin?
All right.
That I'm sure I'm going to hate.
Yeah, probably. If you've seen it, if you've even heard of it. Yeah, number 4. I know this movie you've heard of because I brought it up on the podcast pretty recently on News on the March, so we didn't have a full conversation about it. But that is an Italian movie, a genuine Italian movie, not Licorice Pizza Italian. It's from Paolo Sorrentino, and that is The Hand of God. And have either of you guys watched this movie yet, first off?
No, not yet.
No.
It's on the list.
Okay. I didn't think so. But this movie is set in Naples in the 1980s, the year and summer before the team there, Napoli, signs Diego Maradona. That's kind of your backdrop in the same way that like the Civil War is the backdrop in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And
that doesn't do anything for me, though. When is that? What year?
Sometime in the 1980s. I don't know the exact year. But I just want to say like that's where the name of the film comes from, The Hand of God, which is the name for a goal that Maradona scored in a World Cup. That's where the name comes from. And did
he score it with his hands?
Yeah,
with God's hands.
His hand. Story. He scored it with his hand. People were like, "Was that a handball?" And of course, at the time, they didn't have like video review to like call it back and be like, "Oh, it was." So he got away with it. Won the World Cup with a goal scored with his hand. In the interview afterwards, they asked him, "Did you hit it with your hand?" And he said, "Well, it was a little bit of Maradona and a little bit of the hand of God," is his quote, which is kind of cool in my opinion. But that's where
sounds like cheating.
It is very much cheating. So controversial figure.
Sounds like a douchebag.
Yeah. But anyways, this movie, very little about that. It's just that's where the name comes from. This is about a young boy and his Italian family growing up in the 80s. It's got very much like Fellini, Amarcord type vibes, maybe mixed with a little bit of like Call Me By Your Name, because that movie is also set in the 80s, I think, in Italy or Europe somewhere.
Yeah, it's set in Italy. I don't know about the decade.
Okay, I think it's the 80s based on like the music they're dancing to at points and the clothes that they're wearing. Yeah, but anyway, so kind of somewhere between those two movies, it's really well shot, really intentionally shot. Some absolutely gorgeous like shots compositionally, some interesting looking characters. There's some that are like over the top, a lot of like fun like side characters in the family that come in and out, but the main character is this kid, this teenager named Fabietto, and you kind of just see his sort of like coming of age story during these sort of like episodic events throughout this year. One of the events that kind of like sets the story in motion is that both of his parents die. And I won't really go into too much about that or what more happens beyond that, but that's kind of the premise of the movie. But I thought it was beautiful. I thought it was really wonderfully performed. It has such great energy, very much like Fellini with a bit more of a modern sensibility in terms of like pacing and energy, if that makes sense.
Uh-huh. It does, because it sounds a lot like the director's other film that I saw, The Great Beauty.
Does it? Like style-wise, it sounds a lot like it?
Yeah, it's like, yeah, that's honestly probably the reason, like, even though I like The Great Beauty, that's probably the reason I haven't gone out of my way to see this one. is because although I really, really like it, it's very self-indulgent, and I just it's long. I don't know how long Hand of God is, but
2 hours and 10 minutes.
Okay, that seems more manageable.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
But yeah, I want to see this movie really bad.
Yeah,
agreed.
It is on Netflix, so it's there to be seen very easily. But yeah, I'll leave it there for now. And back to Mike.
Oh my, already. Okay. So my number 3 is a film that I saw recently, and I think we have talked about it on the podcast briefly. And it is a film directed by Sean Baker.
Ooh.
And it stars Simon Rex and a bunch of other maybe actors and non-actors, but Simon Rex is the MVP here.
Yeah. And
boy, what a movie. This is a movie that gets better and better upon reflection.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting at 4.5 right now, but if I saw it again, I might even go to 5. I think it's an exceptional movie. It's this out-of-work adult film actor who's been sort of disgraced. You can only imagine why as the movie goes on. And he goes back to his hometown of Texas City and starts to try to plan his comeback. And in the process, like the leech that he is, uses anyone and everyone that will allow it to have him just get, I don't know, to get high, to have a place to sleep, to whatever. He just takes and takes and takes and is this fascinating character that you love to hate.
Mm-hmm.
So, Red Rocket, I'll keep it brief because it hasn't been mentioned yet. I have a feeling it'll be mentioned again.
Yeah, definitely. It will.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then I will hold off. But yeah, Chris, your number 2. My number 3 was Red Rocket, by the way. Chris, number 2.
Wait,
Chris is number 3.
My number 3.
Oh, that's right. I'm looking at my own list.
So
Chris is number 3.
Yeah. My number 3 has already been mentioned. It is The Green Knight. This movie is really great. Like we talked about earlier, Pig and The Green Knight came out, and I was like, movies are back. They're challenging. They're not just Godzilla versus Kong. And the Green Knight was so great. It was deliberately paced, and we go through it, and it's surreal, or maybe the magical realism, like we were talking about earlier.
I think that's just magic. I think it's just fantasy.
It's just plain magic.
Yeah.
Realistic magic. So no, anyways, it's really surreal. There's episodic, and there's these cool stories that they go into that kind of reflect on masculinity and what it is to be a man or a knight or honorable. And the stories we tell, a lot of these movies, kind of have to do with the stories we tell each other to stay civil to each other and the way we deal with those stories. I think this movie probably has the most fantastic ending sequence or I would say sequence in all of the movies this year. That last sequence is so great. It's basically a really moving, gripping, silent film that's shot at the very, that's tagged on at the very end of this movie, and it's worth it to see just for that. I would even just say that by itself is, a piece of art. But I really like this movie. How are you guys about this movie? Is it going to show up again?
It might.
Okay. All right, then. We'll move on to Justin.
All right. Number 3 on my list. Let's see here. So I'm assuming this film is not on anyone else's list because it hasn't showed up thus far, and I would be floored if it showed up on anyone else's list at this point. But this is a film that I watched pretty recently. It is a musical film from Leo Carax. I don't know how to say that. But this is a movie with a music and story written by the band Sparks, which had a Edgar Wright documentary called The Sparks Brothers out that I think probably a lot more people watched that documentary than watched Annette, to be honest. But the film's called Annette. It stars Marion Cotillard and Adam Driver.
Baby Annette.
What?
And Baby Annette.
And Baby Annette. Sure. Yeah. But has anyone else seen this movie? Is it gonna?
I have.
Is it gonna be on anyone else's list?
It
No.
will not.
Okay, I didn't think so. So this movie is just flat out weird. It's bizarre. The music isn't necessarily catchy most of the time, although some of it kind of is. And I think I was just like fascinated with just the overall like tone and execution of this movie, and how like weird some of the scenes are with like Adam Driver doing. He's a stand-up comedian in the movie, and he does these bits on stage that are just really like weird and off-putting, things that reminded me of like Bo Burnham's Inside at times, but even darker.
Yeah.
Yeah, have you seen this, Chris?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And yeah, it just starts out as like a dark movie with weird music, and it just gets weirder and weirder from there. Like one of the creepiest things I think I've ever seen is in this movie, in Baby Annette. Whenever that happens, I won't say much more to keep it kind of spoiler free, but I think there's a scene in this movie where I was on the fence about it the whole time, and Simon Helberg has a role in this film, and most people will know him from Big Bang Theory, which of course I know him from that as well. I think he's also great in Coen Brothers' A Serious Man in his brief role. So he obviously has like more to offer than just Big Bang Theory. But there's a scene with him where he's conducting an orchestra while singing a song. And I think like once I realized that like the filmmakers had something that confident and that great in there, it kind of made me recontextualize everything that I was unsure about because it was so weird, and, buy into the confidence, which I think I needed to do in order to get into the movie and get on its wavelength. Because before that, for a lot of it, I wasn't unsure of how good the movie was and just how like weird it was for weird's sake. But since then, I've gone back and watched several scenes again, just because I thought they were really cool. I think the film has like really interesting opening credits, and yeah, just a wild, wild movie. Not the weirdest one on my list or any of our lists, but a wild movie that I really enjoyed. What do you guys think?
Yeah. Somewhat similar to you. I mean, I'm obviously not as big of a fan. It's not on my list. But there was a scene at the very end that almost like, like I was like, oh, and it almost won me over. I like this movie. Okay. It's maybe a little too weird, or like the stand-up bits that Adam Driver does. I know they're not supposed to be funny, but they feel grating, and they're kind of tough to get through as you watch it. Mm-hmm. And it's supposed to be that way, but it also, maybe it's doing its job too well, But that one last scene in there almost won me over. And maybe if I revisit it or if I think about it more, I'll like it more. But I can definitely see why you would like it.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah. I agree with Chris about the end. There's a couple scenes near like the last 10 minutes of the movie where I was like, do I like this more than I thought I did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's hard to tell. What I will say is that I think the music's actually pretty bad most of the movie, and is a detriment to it. Like, it's supposed to be, and I get it, Sparks are kind of quirky and strange, but like, I don't know, the music wasn't particularly, like, lyrically, it wasn't very creative. A lot of times they just repeat the same line over and over again for,
yeah.
Like, there's one song where they say, we love each other so much.
Yeah.
Over and over and over and over. And I get it.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's a good movie. It swings for the fences. It's just not something that resonated or spoke with me or sat with me to contemplate further. And maybe I should. Maybe I should go back. But I don't know. I think I saw this first before you guys did, a few months ago. And I didn't have anyone to talk about it with, so it just kind of sank away, and I kind of just haven't talked about it with anybody. Mm-hmm. And kind of formed my thoughts on my own before anyone else saw it,
Yeah. I don't blame anybody for any feelings they have about this movie. It's so bizarre that, like, if someone walked up and was like, I completely hate that movie, it's a piece of garbage, I totally get it. I do.
Well, no, see, I don't feel that strongly about it. I think the worst part about it for me is I almost really like it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing that I think tears me up the most about this movie is, like, when I started it and when it ended, I wanted to like it so much more than I did during the whole time watching it.
Right. Yeah.
And it's challenging in that way. And I don't... Sometimes when a movie pushes back, it just doesn't work. Like... yeah, I'm right there with you, Mike.
I think the thing about the music is, like, yes, it's not catchy and it's not supposed to be, but and maybe it's also because I watched this movie after watching the Sparks Brothers documentary, but like I really felt like that at times, like I am on the same wavelength as Sparks and like the things that they were trying to do with their music, and like it's something that really speaks to me. And that kind of carried over to the movie, right? That like I just the swing for the fences is what resonates me, or maybe in some ways it's like instead of swinging to try to hit a home run, like instead of swinging the bat at the ball, they just grabbed it and like turned around and threw it at someone to like hit them in the face, and like that was the goal. And it's not necessarily how you play the game, but they tried something, and that's what their intention was, and they went for it, as unconventional and weird as it is.
Yeah.
If that's a weird analogy, but it's off the top of my head. So if it doesn't make sense, sorry.
The best analogy that's ever been put forth on this podcast.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, that was my number 3, Annette. It's on Amazon Prime for free if you have the Prime. Otherwise, I think you can rent it wherever else. But Mike, I think we're to the number 2s.
Indeed, we are. All right, so my number 2 is a film that has been mentioned before very recently, and that is The Green Knight.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't have too much more to offer than what has been said previously by these two. It's great. It's really good. It was the first movie of the year where I felt like, yes, okay, finally. I've been waiting for this for a while. And I think The Green Knight had been on my most anticipated the year before.
Yeah, probably.
Mm-hmm. So it was a long time coming, and it did not disappoint, which is always exciting because it's not often that a movie just doesn't disappoint, you know?
Right.
If you look forward to it as long as that. And anyway, Dev Patel is so great.
Yeah.
He just is so charismatic. He is likable, even though his character is not likable, which is
his hair is likable.
What'd you say?
His haircut is super likable.
Yeah.
That hair blowing in the wind.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a Twitter, there was a tweet a few months ago where someone was like, what's the best anyone has ever looked in a movie? And then I think Seth Rogen was like, it's Dev Patel in The Green Knight.
Yeah, sure.
Which I thought was funny, but not inaccurate. And yeah, I'll just say that like it's not very often we get too many of these Arthurian legends type movies in a modern day, especially ones that aren't directed by Guy Ritchie and trying to like reboot or kickstart some kind of stupid action franchise, you know?
Yeah, they want to be fast-paced, fun, like bring a lot of energy and action to them, and
right. And David Lowery's not interested in that at all. He does
the opposite.
Yeah, he wants to just do like the anti that, right? And he challenges the audience every step of the way.
Mm-hmm.
And in my opinion, it's just like it's a movie that understands what it is. It understands who it's trying to be for. And it expects the audience to rise to the occasion. And if it doesn't, it wasn't made for you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'll just keep it there. But I'll just say that I really loved it. It's great. It's my favorite David Lowery movie. I think it even rose above A Ghost Story for me, which
nice.
was previously my favorite.
Yeah.
So, yeah, The Green Knight, exceptional. And like Chris said, the last 15 minutes is just so freaking good.
Mm-hmm.
Like the last 15 minutes is so much better than most movies ever strive to be.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. So, yeah, The Green Knight. Chris, number 2, sir.
All right, we're getting down to, there's very few movies left. This one's already been mentioned. It's a Western. It's Jane Campion. This movie's really great. The Power of the Dog. You know, the performances are riveting. So while you may not know necessarily like what kind of movie you're watching as you're watching it, you're enthralled by these performances. Benedict Cumberbatch, McPhee, Jesse Plemons, and Kirsten Dunst all are so amazing in this that it just carries the movie. And then the other thing is like, movies have these action set pieces that like keep you going, but like, man, there are these action set pieces that have no action in it. It's just Benedict Cumberbatch walking through a herd of cows, and the cows, his like force of nature, his personality is so strong that the cows part for him, like as he's walking through it, like just those little moments of these scenes that are like so beautiful and like just this movie is so great and shot so well. And then there's this thing that happens and you're surprised by it, and you go listen to the first 5 minutes of this movie again and you're like, oh, I get it. And it's really great. I really love this movie a lot. In fact, I like it second best of the year. So is this going to show up on anybody else's list?
Yes, it will.
Okay. All right. Well, Justin, what is your second best movie of the year?
Yeah, my number 2, it's already been mentioned twice, so here it is coming around again, but this is Titan.
Nice.
Yeah, so we've kind of already discussed the movie, so to add on like the things that really worked for me, it was just, it's been said, but like the movie has everything, and I didn't really expect that. Like I knew it was supposed to be kind of shocking, kind of disturbing, and bizarre, but I didn't expect it to be as good at all of those things as it is. Like it's definitely one of the most disturbing, shocking, weird movies, but then to also be as moving at moments and also funny in a few choice scenes. And it just surprised me the like emotional range that this movie goes through, while looking incredible and just being insanely well shot. And so this movie is just like, to me, one of the few movies I've seen this year that's just firing on all cylinders. And alongside like talking about The Last Daughter like I did earlier, this is the other movie that was just so good at keeping me uneasy and unnerved constantly, about this like sense of impending doom that the film has. And also one of the only movies, maybe the only movie I can think of that made me look away from the screen at points because I couldn't keep looking at what was going on, or literally covering my eyes with my hands and like peeking through my fingers at the screen, which is, that doesn't happen very often for me. And the fact that it did, I mean, this movie is so effective, if nothing else. But I just think this movie has so much going on that like we touched on it in our episode. The gender identity stuff, accepting people for who they are and not necessarily what you want them to be. And sometimes that goes both ways in the movie, but just a movie that's literally everything, and that's commendable to me. And to pull it off without feeling unsure of itself or unsure what it wants to be about, or like it's shortchanged just on any one aspect, because I don't think it has any of those issues. Like it doesn't feel unfocused to me. It all feels intentional, and yeah, I feel like anything that like I don't understand, I just haven't watched the movie enough yet to really put it together.
Yeah. It sounds like we need to do a podcast about Raw.
Yeah, maybe.
Her other movie.
I'm definitely more interested in that one, although the amount of times that I had to like, I was squeamish and unsettled watching this movie makes me nervous.
Yeah, I think it's a different kind of squeamish in Raw, but yeah. It's there too.
But cool. So that was my number 2, Titan. Anyone else have anything to add on that?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
Yeah, I said my piece earlier.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Number 1s then. Wow, we're here.
We've arrived. Okay, so I won't belabor this too much more because I think everyone has a pretty good idea of what my number one is. That is The Power of the Dog. So I'll just echo everything they were saying. It is great from beginning to end. Jane Campion understands what the audience thinks they're about to watch, and she plays it slow, and she plays it close to the chest. Man, it's just what a movie this is, right?
I've rarely felt so manipulated by a director.
And then appreciate it.
But not in a lame way, not in a Fight Club way where you're like, now the ball drops and we have to recontextualize everything.
Right, yeah.
I see what you did.
Cool?
Yeah.
It doesn't do that. It does the twist in a way that as soon as it happens, you're like, that feels right. As soon as you understand what happens, basically.
Yeah.
As soon as she gives you the clues to connect the dots, you're like, of course. Of course. It had to. It had to end this way. There's no other way for it to end. And it doesn't, I don't know. You think you're watching something, and then that to me is the greatest magic trick, right? Is you think you're watching a sweet, realizing who you are and your sexuality type thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the movie just has so much more on its mind than that. And Benedict Cumberbatch is very, very good. Kirsten Dunst is probably my favorite Kirsten Dunst performance since Melancholia. I wish she had more to do. If I had any complaint about this movie, it's that I could use 10 more minutes of Kirsten Dunst doing things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But also, equally, Jane Campion, she put together this amazing cast where I want to see so much of every single person. But the movie just doesn't have time for that. It has a story to tell.
Well, everybody's so fleshed out, and there's a scene that's so sweet at the very beginning, and it's, Jesse Plemons, goes out and waits tables for Kirsten Dunst when he's courting her, and it's just so sweet. And, I think that it could be a scene that could be cut out, but it adds, who he is. It adds so much to those characters, and you understand
the dynamic
them.
and the difference between them.
Yeah. It's really great, and so well done. And a second viewing, I watched it a second time, and you get all these different layers that have happened. It's really good. I like it a lot.
Yeah. So
obviously.
Yeah. Anyway, Jane Campion. This is my favorite Jane Campion film that I've seen. I haven't seen them all, but yeah, I just think it's so good, and it's everything I look for in a movie. Right? It's challenging, it's surprising, it's well acted. The score is unique and moody. The cinematography is beautiful. There's really just nothing I can think of about this movie that isn't top notch, firing on all cylinders,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's not one aspect of it that's bad. The script is exceptional. The direction, the performances, everything. It's just no one phoned it in.
Yeah. No, agreed.
So anyway, that's my number one movie of the year, The Power of the Dog. Chris, what do you got?
All right, guys. I have a confession to make. I cheated. I have two movies.
That is blatantly cheating.
They're both by Ryusuke Hamaguchi. The reason I kind of did this, Drive My Car is really great. But he also did this other movie. It's 3 short films, and it's called Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy. And they're both kind of, I like them both for the same reasons. Because he's
Did they both come out this year?
Huh? Yeah, they both came out this year.
Okay, fine.
Oh, whew. I'm glad you guys approve. But I just wanted to bring up Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy because I think it's a great movie, and I see Drive My Car on all the other lists and everything like that. But I want to put this one in there too, to put it on our radars at the very least. But the thing I like about him is that, and Justin touched on it when he talked about his movie earlier. Or did you guys both put this on your list?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Mike was at 10. Anyways, yeah. But Justin said, he lets the actors do their thing. And really, he's like an actor's director. He kind of just, he's not flashy. Where his movies are flashy is in the performances, And that's what I really like about him. He is trusting enough in his actors that he's willing to let them carry the film, as opposed to, I love Titan, but there's no crazy going through the car show shot, which is great. And don't get me wrong, but what Hamaguchi does is he sits back and lets the actors do the crazy, thing that pulls you into the movies. And in Drive My Car, there's this, I don't know, if long, like 10-15 minute scene, it feels like, where it's just the two guys talking and the driver listening, and I was riveted the whole time. And even in the 3-hour movie, oftentimes I feel like I put too much emphasis on how long a movie is before I watch it. Oftentimes I think I rob myself of good movies like Last Duel, because every time I sat down to watch The Last Duel, I was like, 2.5 hours, why? But in Drive My Car, once I started it, it carried me the whole way through, and I was just riveted by all the performances. And the same thing with Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy. He has these 3 different scenes, and he just kind of sits back and lets the actors do their thing. And I really respect that. I think it's very seldom, I think, that I often, unless it's a filmed play, so he's real subtle in his work. So, what did you guys think about Drive My Car? Do you have anything else to add?
I don't think I have anything else to add other than to say I agree. The director likes to approach with a very minimal touch, right? Like, he likes to put like one really, really nice composition and let the actors play in that composition.
Right.
I will also say that one of the underkey, lowest rated moments of movies this year is whenever the two people are driving in the car and they have their like hands out the sunroof with their little cigarettes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Something about that scene is just very, very magical.
Yeah.
Even though I find smoking repulsive, but
sure.
Smoking
but,
on
in
film
movies
is...
like this, right? Like, I like to see people do it, and I like to see people like look cool doing it, So he had a way to make that happen, and the actors get to play in the scene and really breathe and feel like lived-in characters. And it's something that felt pretty unique to that movie this year.
Yeah, smoking on film is way more romantic than it is in real life because you can't smell it.
Yeah,
true enough.
It looks cool, but yeah. I was going to say something about this movie. I don't know what it was, but it's great. We'll leave it at that. Sorry.
Hopefully, Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy, like I Drive My Car is going to be on Criterion. I think even like Janice put it out, so I'm like 95% Drive My Car will be Criterion. But what I'm really hoping for is Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy is also on Criterion, so that we can get a chance to talk about it sometime in the future, because I really liked it. It's really great. Yeah, so I hope we get a chance to talk about it further. Now I only have to watch Happy Hours, which is his 5-hour-long movie about a bunch of sisters, so should be a lot of fun.
The opening credits appear 3 hours into the movie.
Yeah. All right, Justin, what's your number 3? Or number 3. Number 1.
I already told you. You're not listening.
Yeah.
Number 1. This is a film that's already been mentioned. I'm actually mad that it didn't get mentioned on your list, Chris, because I don't understand how that happens. Because this movie is so good. It is. It is.
Glad I didn't let you down.
Yeah. No. Thanks, Mike. You're making me feel good about this. But yeah, it's Sean Baker's Red Rocket. Mike's already given the premise. I mean, this movie. Sometimes you see a movie and you feel like it's tailor made for you, and oftentimes like. Those movies end up like pretty high on my list, and this is like that movie of this year, right? As I feel like it's not only is it shot near where I live in Texas City, but Sean Baker's style is just really natural and raw looking while being beautiful at the same time, and at times maybe a little like highly saturated. And he uses a lot of non-actors alongside his real actors to get people that look like they should exist in the environments that he's in. And I don't think he shoots a thing in studio. He seems to shoot it all on locations, real locations. So there's just so much realism to it. And in that way, it feels very much like another genre of movie that I connect with, where is films like The Bicycle Thieves, like that Italian neo-realist style, and that's what his films feel like to me, but with more handheld camera, a little bit more faster pacing, like free-flowing editing, that sort of thing, but I don't know what I can say that hasn't been said about it. Simon Rex is really, really great. Just, I don't know that he needs to, but he certainly carries the movie anyways. Because everything else is really good in it. The non-actors, the woman who plays his ex-wife, Brie Elrod, she's, I think her and maybe the one who plays the girl Strawberry, but I know Brie Elrod, who plays his ex-wife, is the only other like actor who's done a decent amount of stuff before. Otherwise, he's working with a lot of non-actors and getting great performances out of them. I love the Florida Project too. I thought it was great for basically all the same reasons, just having a love for like the people and the location, and having a love for telling their story and making it as accurate and real as possible while being entertaining for us to watch and captivating, and giving us characters that are equally horrible and equally captivating, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, also great use of NSYNC.
The best use of NSYNC.
I forgot NSYNC was in there.
It's in that movie 3 times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny.
So, all right. In my defense, I really love this movie. I think it's really well. Simon Rex, amazing. Possibly the best performance in a film this year. His manic energy just like drove me up the wall. I think I'm still coming to terms with it. The movie, I really like it, and it's challenging, but I just think I'm gonna have to think about it some more, and like maybe watch it again before it's on my list. It's like number 12, so
might as
it's
well
on
be
there, and
number
maybe
300.
Yeah,
it's number 300. No, anyways, I really like it, and it's really great.
I'm messing with you. It's okay you didn't put it on there, but
now this is the new segment of the show where we shame each other for not picking the movies we liked ourselves.
Yeah, that's a new thing I'm trying out on here is shame. So if it's not working, let me know. But I'm giving it
much
a go.
like the Hulk. The secret is that I always feel shame, so you don't have to shame.
Okay, well now it's depressing.
Yeah. So really, you never do.
Yeah.
So real quick, I want to do some honorable mentions, but before we do that, do you guys just want to quickly, starting with Mike, recap your top 10?
Sure.
I do want to do that. All right, so starting at 10 to number 1. Number 10, Drive My Car. Number 9, Spider-Man No Way Home. Number 8, Dune. Number 7, Titan. Number 6, Pig. 5, Licorice Pizza. 4, The Last Duel. 3, Red Rocket. 2, The Green Knight. And 1, The Power of the Dog.
All
Beautiful.
right. And for my list, the best list, by the way. Number 10 is Timekeepers of Eternity. Number 9 is Titan. 8 is Passing. 7 is Benedetta. 6 is West Side Story. 5 is Dune. 4 is Pig. 3 is The Green Knight. 2 is The Power of the Dog. And number 1, it's a tie. Drive My Car and Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy.
Nice. So my list, starting with number 10, is The Lost Daughter. Number 9, Don't Look Up. 8, The Green Knight. 7, Drive My Car. 6, Licorice Pizza. 5, The Power of the Dog. 4, The Hand of God. 3, Annette. 2, Titan. And 1, Red Rocket.
Okay, so that completes each of our top 10. I don't know how many films that actually was, like 25 or something?
Something like that. 23 to 25, I would guess.
Yeah.
I'm not counting.
We had more divergence than I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I expected, honestly, I'm surprised that Red Rocket was not on your list, Chris. I think that was the one I was expecting to be on all of ours.
Yeah, that was the one I was certain of.
Well, we'll ask in next year, and we'll decide. How do you feel about last year's list? And maybe I'll be like, Red Rocket. What was I thinking?
Yeah, probably.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, but any honorable mentions that almost made your list you guys want to go over briefly?
Yeah, I'll go first since I was first in the lineup. I had 15 films total, so 5 of them almost made it, but then didn't. So I'll start with number 11. 11 would be Old Henry, which is a nice indie little Western starring Tim Blake Nelson, which is just super well made, super watchable, very fun, traditional little Western. 12, Mass, which stars Jason Isaacs and Ann Dowd of like Handmaid's Tale and Compliance fame.
Justified.
Yeah.
Justified, there you go. Yeah, she's great in it. It's obviously a very sad movie, but it's about 4 parents getting together after a tragedy in a school, let's put it that way, and airing their grievances. And then I have number 13, Last Night in Soho, number 14, Lamb, and 15, Luca.
Oh, nice. Luca.
Yeah, I wanted a cartoon on there. What?
I said, what a movie.
Yeah, it was a movie this year. It was one of the ones I saw.
I like Luca too. I'm with you.
Yeah, I mean, it was number 15. It wasn't anywhere getting close to the top 10, but I wanted a cartoon in there somewhere, and that was the best one, in my opinion.
There you go. All right, Chris?
All right, Chris, what is your...
The Suicide Squad? I really enjoyed that movie. I think that would have been my Spider-Man movie, the movie that I really enjoyed, that I had the most fun with. That was a lot of fun. Of course, Red Rocket, Licorice Pizza, those are both on there. Come On was pretty good. The Harder They Fall, I think would have kind of, they're in that didn't quite make the list range. And the other one, and maybe we should talk about this, but especially as movies and TV become more and more blurred, but I would have put Station 11 in my list if I could have, maybe next year we'll change it up. But
then
Station 11
I would have put Midnight
really
Mass
great.
in mine.
Huh?
Then I would have put Midnight Mass in mine.
Oh, yeah, that was a good one too. So, and I'm sure Justin would have put in White Lotus, so we all would have put in some type of show.
Yes,
anyways, Justin,
true.
what are your honorable mentions?
Yeah, well, just on that note, I would have put White Lotus in there probably, and for like series, but also like my fun one, Loki, I just loved completely. So that would have been in there too if that counted as a film. But anyways, moving to actual films, so I'll do 5 really quick. Edgar Wright's Last Night in Soho was really close. I like that movie a lot. That was a lot of fun. Dune, which we talked about. See, it almost made it. I did like it. So so there we go.
You just changed it and added it in there now.
Yeah.
Podcast is back on.
Yeah. Bo Burnham's Inside, I think, deserves a shout out. I thought that was really entertaining and just something totally different and fun.
Yeah, agreed.
Wes Anderson's The French Dispatch was just a lot of fun, as any Wes Anderson movie is. A lot of fun to look at. And then I also have an animated film, but as one I just watched, and maybe there's a bit of recency bias because I also really like Luca, and the difference between the two of them for me is kind of minimal, but Encanto I just watched, and I thought it was really moving and really sweet and funny. It might have made it up on my list higher, but the ending left me a little flat. But prior to that, I was really enjoying the movie.
Yeah, I liked Encanto as well. And I also, Chris, I agree with you about Suicide Squad. That one was almost on my honorable mentions. And I will say that actually the Peacemaker show is actually kind of making me like Suicide Squad more.
Interesting.
Awesome.
I've still only seen the first episode.
It acts as a very direct, fault. Like the very first episode of Peacemaker, it's like previously on Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
And gives you like as if it were just like an episode beforehand. So honestly, I think you're going to really like Peacemaker when you finally sit down to watch the whole thing. Because if Suicide Squad was on your honorable mentions, then I can only imagine that movie being improved by this show.
Awesome. I'm really excited. How many episodes are out now?
There's 4 now.
Okay.
And they get better as they go on, in my opinion.
I think I'll start picking that up since I'm not cramming movies in like I was.
Yeah.
Same.
So treat yourself.
Same.
Yeah.
Cool. Is this us done?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Think
this is one of our longest episodes in a while, but this episode always is long.
Yeah, we knew it would be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so on that note, thank you, listener, so much for listening. If you're still here, as always, thanks Jake Wagner Russell for doing our intro and outro music. If you want to hear more of his music, you can do so at soundcloud.com/bobscotch.
All right, stay tuned to this feed. Our next episode will be 3 question marks.
Yeah, my favorite movie of this year, probably.
No, we don't have it in the notes yet, but I think it'll be won't it be the Criterion?
I think, I think Criterion, One Night in Miami.
Yeah, so, One Night in Miami. Here we come.
Let's go.
Stay tuned. Subscribe.
All right, guys. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.